I'm Pieter de Kiewit. I will be moderating today's session. It's hosted by TIS and TreasuryXL, and I'm very happy we have some very good experts. Let me briefly introduce you to them. Ladies first, Lourdes. She has a solid track record in corporate treasury, both on the corporate side with Philips, first as an operational person, and then climbing up the hierarchy, transferring to PwC in treasury advisory, and currently she's helping Sabic getting the next level in corporate treasury as a senior manager there. Also very happy Michael joins us. Michael from Siemens in renewable energy. He worked both in treasury as well as in treasury technology. Recently, he did some great things that have been awarded in multiple places. So he must be doing something very well. So he will share his learnings about that. Jörg is the real systems expert among us. He's representing TIS. He will tell us what works and what doesn't, and of course what the future will bring. So looking forward to his input also. As a disclaimer, and also a bit based upon the audience we've got over here, I want to stress this is a session that will focus on the strategic and tactical, not the bits and the bytes. It's not a session about large bulk payments, e-commerce, but it caters on the corporate treasurers in various industries and what they stumble upon. On the other side, it's also not for people doing manual payments, of course. A few always, but not focusing on that too much. Some practical aspects. You've got the possibility to ask questions in the Q&A. In the background, some very good experts are helping us. And with that, so if you have questions, we try to answer those. If not, perhaps they are answered afterwards. And also the session will be recorded and will send to people, to you, and also the people who couldn't attend but signed up. So as mentioned, Lourdes, you started in operations, moved into leadership, to consultancy, and also now are busy with projects. If you look back on the last 15 years, what in your perceptions were the key moments in payments in the last 15 years?
Thank you, Peter, for the nice intro, and thank you to TreasuryXL and TIS for the opportunity of being part of this dialogue today. Well, during my early days in Treasury, we had still a considerable amount of manual payments for many valid reasons. And thinking now back, I think I just been at the right moment within Treasury. As you have mentioned before, I moved to the Netherlands. I wasn't doing anything related to Treasury, but I'm happy that with my move here, I end up in that function. And I have to say that I think I stepped in at the right time. And I will get back into why I'm thinking now back like this in a few minutes. If I look back, straight through payment processing was for the people in operations an important KPI, not only for the company, but also it was a topic of discussions when we were meeting our banks. Maybe few of the participants today in the webinar had the opportunity to be in Treasury on these interesting days, and certainly they will remember the challenges, host-to-host connections, payment file uploads on online banking, and still not much a challenge, but let's say boring and time-consuming single entries in the same e-banking platforms. Not bad if you have a handful of payments, but definitely it was something that they realized it was not sustainable when you were talking a large volumes. To get back to my early comments on what I think I stepped in at the right time, today, if I think about it, I have very good memories. I think that also set good foundations for what was going to come. Fortunately, those days are now behind, and we are living in a better days where important past events like the establishment of the SWIFT network for exchange of financial information between corporates and financial institutions has enabled the gates for what was going to follow. The introduction of SEPA and the still evolving ISO XML payment standards are great examples that we have and will continue making good steps for even further automation and in the near future, hopefully being able to globally process payments without any human intervention.
Mm-hmm.
It is now, I think, up to the managers, leading the teams responsible for payments, to take advantage of all the possibilities that are there in the market. And if there is still certain degree of manual transactions, how they can bring it to the next level. We have made important steps, no doubt on that, and most probably we are all enjoying the benefits that those important steps has brought us, but we are still not there. And I think we will go more into that later on. A straight-through processing is not a worry anymore because I think most of us are already there, but there is still challenges to overcome.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of that to come, and I think also Michael can tell a lot of interesting stuff about that. Lourdes is already quite technology-driven in her remarks. Her batch bulk payments, her host-to-host, her SWIFT, and all the acronyms she mentioned. Do you agree? And what do you see furthermore in technology perspective in recent times?
Thank you, Peter. So let's take one step back. So when I started working in the treasury area, actually I was shocked how much treasury was lagging behind when it comes to technology. So in my opinion, new technology is key, but more importantly, readiness of new technology is key. Yeah. So just to give you an example, when we think about the current situation, the current applications that are available in the treasury sphere, there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
So I see that Moore's law. So I've studied physics and worked in IT for quite a long time, and Moore's law is still true, right? So every 2 years the computing power is doubling, and this has also an effect on treasury, that cannot be avoided. I see actually 4 major trends, and I believe everyone should be ready for it. So, for example, the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. I don't say that everyone needs to be ready today, but you should be ready at some point. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to give you an example, we have 2023 and already 114 countries are in the discussion of such a currency type. Yeah, so it is not that only 1 or 2 countries consider it, but it's already advanced.
Yeah, it will get there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the next topic obviously is then bank APIs. Yeah. If we think about consumers, we already use bank APIs every day with different mobile apps. Yeah, whether it's Klarna or so. But it's also important to think about it from a business perspective, from a company, corporate perspective. How can we leverage that? Real-time information, real-time payments. That is not possible in a file-based scenario, right?
Nope.
And 2 more topics, and just to make it short, I don't know if Michael is back. Then is Michael back, or do you want me to continue?
Yeah, no, please. Now you mentioned 4. I want to hear 4. Please do.
Perfect. No, great. So then the next topic, obviously, artificial intelligence. Yeah, ChatGPT is all over the place. Google Bard and whatnot. So can we leverage artificial intelligence also in treasury? Absolutely. Yeah, whether it's cash forecasting, liquidity planning, or even cash dispositioning. I believe that an artificial intelligence can do it much better. I believe that the AI is not advanced enough to fully leverage them today. But again, Moore's law, right? So what we see today is already very impressive. What we will see in 2025 will be even more impressive. And then, based on actually those topics, I also want to manage the. I also want to mention the community data. Yeah. So leveraging actually massive amounts of data and also community data is a fundamental requirement, in my opinion, to use AI. AI lives from data, and it is wise not to rely on your own data, but maybe also on the community data. And of course, at TIS we are already doing that in fraud prevention. We are leveraging community data there. to predict if fraud is happening or potential payment fraud is happening. So yes, I believe those are four major trends, but of course there are even more, right?
All big topics, and all in itself. I think only on API there are at least 3 or 4 webinars, recorded webinars on TreasuryXL to be found. So you touch upon really important aspects, the other 3 also. Let's see if we can find some time to dig in a bit further, but give the floor back first to Michael. So you're back, and we're very keen on hearing your input from your utilities and your new environment, Michael. What did you want to tell us about utilities moving forward and other environments, please?
With regards to the environments, I can definitely say that there's a huge difference in the environment when you move from smaller corporations to bigger corporations. In the corporation where I started off, which was also a 2 billion company and therefore technically not too small, you know, we had like one integrated system, and with regards to the payments, everything was embedded in that system. Meaning, you know, we had a few banks to which we have been connected, and therefore those banks, they were all connected coming out of the ERP system. In this case, it was SAP, directly via host-to-host connections or via EBIX connections or whatsoever. Yeah. Then when I moved on to Siemens Gamesa, which is a pretty big company with regards to in the field of renewable energies, in the wind farm business, we are operating on a much more global scale. So we have a footprint which is in, I believe, something of almost 250 companies across 85 countries. And therefore, when it comes down to payments, our approach is very different, or what we have built is very different, because we figured out very much that for us, technically speaking, it is totally impossible to connect to that many banks and also maintain all the different payment formats in order to enable the banks to actually read our payments. And therefore, we have decided to go for a best breed solution where we have kind of separated the ERP system from the ERP system and the treasury system, which in our case is basically all in one, which is SAP. And then we basically engaged also in a payment platform so that we can leverage the benefit of sending one generic file to the payment platform. And then the payment platform is enhancing the file based on the library which it has in its backbone to make it readable for all the banks worldwide. So for us, basically, this has the super huge advantage that no matter if we are going to pay into France, Spain, Germany, Djibouti, Brazil, or to the man on the moon, we are going to kind of use the same payment file, a generic file which comes out of our SAP, SAP system. We forward it to the payment platform, and there we have outsourced the service of enhancing the file to them, because I said for us, technically speaking, it's impossible to build all those formats in our backend systems and also to maintain them, as those formats are constantly evolving.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the question for me. And also perhaps Lourdes can afterwards touch upon this, but you can do it all by yourself and do the connectivity, do it in your ERP, do it in your TMS, do it in a payment platform, or you can go to a company like Adyen or whatever payment service provider. Can you enlighten us as to why you made the choice that you made that works very well for you?
Well, the main reason for us was that when we looked at the different payment platforms, we checked their country-specific footprint. So we wanted to basically check in which countries they already have established connectivity. And therefore, we basically compared that to those countries in which we are very active. I mean, we have a footprint in Europe, we have it in North America, but we also have a quite strong footprint in Latin America or in Southeast Asia. And therefore, we wanted to have a payment platform provider who has already all the formats, or most of the formats. I mean, there will always be some kind of exemptions in very distant countries. Yeah, this on hand, so that we can basically start very quick, send the payment files to them, and then they already know what to do, enhance the files, and then basically ensure that this can be sent out to the banks. So therefore, definitely the most important criterion for us was the country-specific footprint of the payment platform provider, as this is for us the only way where we can secure that we are going to make all the payments.
And technology enables this right now. Perhaps Lourdes, you can also take over, because it must be recognizable for you, such processes, such projects, either as a consultant or in your current environment. I can imagine technology can do a lot. There are providers out there. Can you take us into what you have seen over time, but also what I think is very interesting is beyond the reality of a supplier, because if you are in many countries, if you're in South America or in Asia or in Russia or in Africa, whatever, you not only have to work with the tools that are there, but you also have to work with the reality of regulatory affairs, of banking landscape. What are, in your perception, relevant aspects to start with and to analyze?
I think we have made very good steps. I think we all agree. But let's say having a full coverage, regardless of the size, the location, and the various country regulations, this is still a dream. As Michael mentioned, most probably you have covered most of the needs, but there is still those, let's say, complex cases where you cannot just say one would fit all. And to me, I think there is still steps to do to get there, and it will be like a big dream and a big celebration when, regardless where we have our business, whether it's in restricted countries, regulated countries because of currencies or political challenges or sanctions, that even there we will be able to send an electronic transfer fulfilling all the needs for those banks or service providers. And to me, I think what I would like to see the most is, as I just mentioned, that we are able to connect with all banks, local banks, global banks, anyone, and that somehow banks agree to a certain degree of standardizations, not only on the formats that we use for payments, but also on the services and the skill sets that the personnel has. Because we have, I think, in Europe, we are quite advanced. And if you talk to whoever, they will know what you are talking about. But then when you go to other regions, it can be quite challenging. And that is the first. On top of the technology challenges, then you also need to explain to these people what your needs are, because the skills or the knowledge is not there yet.
Yeah, and that is also the obvious question I want to ask, but you already answered it a bit. In your perception, are the bottlenecks in the organizational, in the acceptance, in the skills, or is the bottleneck mostly in the technology part? Is my assumption right that the answer is the first one, that it's about organizational?
I think a combination of both, because of course we see in some areas where the technology is not as advanced as the one that we have here, and because the banks have certain limitations, you cannot do as much as you would do if, for example, in some like in the Netherlands or in Italy or Brazil. Then of course, if let's say they will all be there, then I think the organizational part is internal, is between them. So I think that could. It shouldn't be such a big challenge to get that check.
What do you see there, Jörg? Because you are constantly in various environments and in different industries and everything. Bottlenecks? Is it organizational context? Who is your contact person? How can you take us through typical TIS success stories?
Thank you, Peter and Lourdes. Actually, thank you very much, because I partly agree with you. So answering the first question first. So I believe the bottleneck is in most of the cases the technology itself, because it is not trivial to really connect all banks globally. The question is the technology bottleneck at the corporate side, at the vendor side, let's say the corporate payment provider side, or at the bank side? And I believe in some cases it's all three. But actually this is the reason why large corporates choose TIS, because we have very advanced technology. We are cloud-based. We have those connectors to also local banks. For sure, it is easy to connect the large ones, right? The major cash management banks. It's relatively easy to connect to them. But then even there, the devil is in the detail. So if you really want to do local payments, tax payments, social payments, split payments in Poland even, right? You don't have to go so far. It's sometimes it's a real challenge. And this is actually why corporates choose TIS. We can offer that global cash management banks as well as local banks. And yes, there is a limitation. So if a bank is not capable to connect via the internet at all, via the usual methods, API, host-to-host, ABIX, Swift, then of course even we cannot solve that problem. But if that's not the case, you really have the best coverage. Then, and answering your second question, who is actually dealing with such topics? It really depends, right? If the company believes, or the management of the company believes, for example, that payments is a compliance topic, you cannot go with a good enough solution that covers only 80% of your banks. Compliance and security is all about 100%. Yeah, if you get a security system for your home, you would not leave out whatever seller windows and say, okay, no, it's too hard to secure them. So you would also secure those as well as you would secure payment streams to all banks, all banks globally. And so if it's a compliance issue, typically then it's also the CFO who's dealing with such topics, or let's say senior management of the Treasury department. If it's not the case, obviously, then if it's driven by standard payment topics, accounts payable or so, then it's a different game. Then maybe it's good enough to have the 70% of the banks connected.
And going to Michael, going to your successful project, I assume, but you will tell us that you were kind of the one of the drivers, or even the driver. What kind of organizational bottlenecks did you have to go through, or hoops you had to jump through? How were you able to first convince everybody what was necessary, and second, keep everybody on board, not only the internal but also the external stakeholders? What was your secret sauce?
Quite frankly speaking, there was not much of a secret sauce, because we were in somehow the lucky situation. Kind of a lucky situation that our case was basically a merger and a carve out at the same time, and therefore we were forced to move out of a legacy system. And this legacy system was rather weak, and it was very outdated, and therefore actually the entire organization was embracing to move to a more digitalized world. Therefore, the resistance within the company was not too big. I mean, of course, there were certain stakeholders who were concerned, if this is all going to go well, will we be able to make the payments and so on. Therefore, then we decided to make a sequential approach, to go with certain entities first, and to build a track record, and then to ensure that we have done it successfully, let's say in 20 countries, and therefore we will also be able to do it in other countries. What has been most beneficial to us from the old system compared to the new system is that in the old world, we were sending a payment, then everything was built on the principle of hope, because only on the next day we figured out if the payment was successful or not by identifying it on the electronic bank account statements, or by not identifying it on the electronic bank account statement. And with the digitalization which our payment provider is offering, we are now basically getting this information in real time. And the best thing is actually that through the integration which we have of our payment platforms through the API, where it is installed also in our SAP landscape, the payment status is also transmitted not only to Treasury, but also to our accounting colleagues. So you can basically imagine we have two SAP systems. One SAP box is for accounting, where all the invoice data is being stored, customer invoices, vendor invoices, everything. And on the other hand, we have the Treasury box, which is another SAP system. And the way how the flow of the data is basically from accounting to Treasury, and then to the payment platform, and then to the bank. And also with regards to the status messages, the so-called PSR codes, we are basically getting them.
Oh, and there we have a freezer again. But what I take from you, Michael, I think you can hear us. You're frozen. Never waste a good crisis, and then move forward. And also what you are bringing forward is the real-time aspect. There has been a lot of discussion among treasurers what the added value would be for real-time payments. This is a typical example. Troubleshooting, getting clear, did it get through or not? And we had some crisis. Perhaps Lourdes, I can move to you. That we had some recent developments there. Did you also see that the developments over the last years, the geopolitical, the COVID or anything, did it have any impact on the either acceptance or implementation of new technology in payments?
if we just look back at the situation that we have very recently, I just look back and I think it has some positive side because it was an accelerator to digitalization and automation of processes. Maybe people were not there yet, but I think that that situation gives them the extra push because of all the challenges that we have. First of all, we couldn't go to the office. We didn't have access to certain things, and we need to do everything remotely. And also keep the connection with the teams virtually. And definitely, if there is a lot of human interactions needed in order to perform your payments, that was also a trigger for management to look at how we can further automate and have less need of people doing that in a, let's say, old-fashioned way. And of course, that brings us new projects on things that you see, how we can continuously have the mindset of what we can do better, what else, how more we can automate. And then if I look at the regulatory and new bank of country requirements, I think that is something that always keep Treasury busy. It's a never do moment. And when you think you can have some rest and then focus on some other, let's say, not hot topics because the market asks you to, then you need to go back and then shift your focus on your priority because there is a new regulation, there is a new situation happening in the market, and it make you just to set your focus, or maybe even start a project that was not in the pipeline. You were not your intention was not to look into that. But of course, having the right technology within Treasury is a pre, because as you mentioned, Peter, technology, having the right Treasury Management System, it is an enabler. And I think this is key once you are going to choose one. Maybe these are not services that you need now, but the system needs to be capable to adapt and be customized from where those needs come.
Perhaps also this is a good moment to answer a question from the audience to Michael specifically. I won't go into all the details because it's quite a detailed question, but it touches upon service providers and in the project management. And I think both Lourdes as well, all three of you can mention something. If you decide to make a transition project, be it an implementation, be it something else, what do you think is essential when you use service providers like treasury consultancies? Are they always necessary? How much do-it-yourself do you do? How do you manage these service providers? So perhaps first, Michael, they want a name. I don't need a name, but did you use a lot of treasury consultancy services, and what's your vision on that topic?
We had one company which was helping us basically in the rollout of the treasury management system in SAP. And then we also had someone helping from our payment platform to basically, ensure and establish the flow of data, to build up the APIs, to connect everything. And apart from that, we had one or two internal resources who were mostly dedicated from Treasury side, and one resource from our IT. I mean, obviously, it could all the time be more, and more would always be better. But as resources are typically scarce, I think this is a very typical setup.
Perhaps, Lourdes, you can take over with the question. Service providers, you worked at PwC Treasury. Now you have your own company. I have clients who say, okay, I let the people who work with it manage the project, and I find extra resources to cover the tasks they cannot handle during the project. And of course, there are also very strong service providers who manage the whole project.
The key for the projects where I have been involved that touch on this area, the key to success has been having an experienced team, project team. If you don't have that expertise in-house, definitely consultants are of a great help. Exposed to more clients, they also hear what has been the pain points, and they also have lessons learned that perhaps the team in corporate doesn't have, because they just work for one company and they are just busy with the way how the company works. Collaboration is key. Even if you have consultants, so you are in-house, is key, because it's not just treasury. As Michael mentioned, it's IT, and in also cases you need to involve all the functions like tax, legal, other areas of finance as well. positive spirit, and I cannot stress enough communication. There is a lot of issues with communication, such a large project, and people who are not aware or they have not been informed. And also where I see that people need to look out is just to involve the ones who are busy on the day-to-day and knows all the details. As Michael mentioned, the devil is in the details. So it is critical that you don't wait too long to get the feedback from these people and understand how the process, especially on payments, look like, and what are these special cases, even before you engage with the service provider to support you on that process. You need to know what is exactly what the company needs, because also what happened, management engaged with someone that they think is best fit, but then when it comes to the details and you involve your team, you realize that there is still gaps that this service provider cannot fulfill.
And it's about money, so payments, it's about salaries being paid, so no room for mistakes there. What's your vision on that, Jörg? When you see the project that were successful, why were they successful? Is it the external service provider? Is it the change management? Is the technology? Is the balancing act? What can you say about that?
Yeah, I guess you need all those factors. Yeah, if you leave out one, it's going to be let's say it's going to be difficult to realize it. Obviously, you need the right technology, but of course, if your company is not willing to implement technology, to focus on that, it's getting hard. And of course, there's value if you bring in service providers, subject matter experts, drive the change, right? Because every project is also to a certain degree about change in the company, and we all know sometimes change is difficult to embrace. Yeah.
Oh yeah, change is from many perspectives. By the way, just a short question: the change management part is not what TIS delivers; it's the technology you deliver. But of course, it comes with change management, I suppose. So you also work with consultants together.
Yes, of course. So we at TIS we offer the technology. We also offer what we call customer success. But customer success is not about change management in detail. It's about enabling the customer to use the technology, and change management and project management parts typically come from from service providers, from our partners, right?
Yeah. And I answered a question from one of the audience members. They asked if you could do it nearby, so on the side, such a big project, or if you should have dedicated team members. I think dedication is essential, I suppose.
You cannot just ask people who are busy on the daily operations to also be part of such an important project.
Well, time flies. We have 6 minutes and we have a topic and we have a bit of a structured session here, but partly also not. We are also free formatting it. What I would like to do in the last 5-6 minutes is try to shut up as much as possible and give the three of you the option to talk about the dream of a payments future or the obvious tip or trick you want to give to the audience that is essential. So where do you see it going, or what would you like to happen, or where you're proud of? And again, Lourdes first, and Michael takes over, and Jörg, you are the last to answer that one. So Lourdes, what would you like to say in the closing part of the session?
I think there is still focus on security, especially for the ones that are fully automated and a little bit aside, or even has outsourced the payment process. Security is key because of all the cyber crimes you hear often on the news, and they will always look at your weakness and take opportunity of that. Hopefully, we will further explore the opportunities that digital currencies, as mentioned by Jörg, can bring. I think we are still on an early days, but there is potential there. And the availability of fully processed electronic payment transfers around the globe, as we all have touched upon during this dialogue.
So real global coverage, going into all exotic places and let that happen. That would be the dream for you.
Exactly.
Being able to reach it all from your Amsterdam office, I can imagine. Michael, did Lourdes already take all your points away, or are there still dreams and pointers left you want to mention?
Well, I think most companies at this stage have already quite good overview about the outflows, about the payments which they are making, and therefore I think there is not much what they can win more. Maybe, this is the, how can I say, the last few steps, the last 3% where you can, you can somehow improve. But I think there is actually, considering that from a, how can I say, also from a perspective from what cash management is doing with regards to cash disposition and so on, I think the biggest potential is on the inflow side. Because I think most companies, they have a very good overview and they have a very good control over the outflows, but most of them also have more or less zero control over their inflows. And therefore, with regards to APIs, which banks are now slowly building up, I believe that this is going to be the next thing, or the next big thing within payments, that banks will start to forward also those push messages or PSR codes or whatsoever via the APIs into the ERP systems of the corporation, so that corporations will much earlier recognize when they are going to have inflows, which at the time of rising interest rates definitely is a very, very valid business case. As long as we had these teaser interest rates and you could basically get money for free, I mean, it did not really harm you too much if you have errors in your cash disposition and you end up with having 25 million to more. But, in case you need to take out loans in order to make up for that, where you have to pay real interest, I think there is a lot of pain points to corporate treasurers. And I think this is where our trend is going. And if we consider how cash disposition is done, I mean, it is coming from three major components. The one is the electronic bank account statement of the last day, which will give you the opening balance of the new day. Then you have your outflows, where I believe what we discussed now, we are actually quite advanced. And then there is the big black box, the inflows. And in order to come to a full picture, I think this is where most of the benefits can be reaped.
I think Jörg will be very happy with this input, because you mentioned this 4 points, and I think this touches a bit upon this, and forecasting has been hot, and it will remain so. Jörg, the honor is for you to make the last content remarks about this session.
Thank you, Peter. Lourdes and Michael, actually, I just want to add here, because I agree with what you just said. I believe technology is key. I mentioned it several times, and I believe real-time information is key. Yes, I hear it often, why do I need real-time information? Yes, there are use cases where you don't need it, but the question is, if you have it, what can you do with it, right? There are scenarios you are probably not thinking about today because you simply don't have it. And the second question is, if everyone else has it and you don't, isn't it a disadvantage? So I believe all those technologies, whether it's bank APIs or artificial intelligence, they are either depending or directly linked to the topic of information flow and real-time information. So yes, I believe what you just said, Michael, is actually very important, to have a real-time overview on also the inflow.
Real-time, AI, forecasting, I think they all deserve separate sessions of more than 45 minutes. In a sense, that's a good sign, I suppose, because we are still busy with a lot of interesting stuff. I'm inspired, so thank you, the three of you, for your wisdom and your experience. Too much ground to cover, so I take that with me, so that's good for the future. Thank you, three panelists, Lourdes, Jörg, Michael. Thank you, TIS and TreasuryXL, of course. And of course, the audience, thank you for being here. And I hope I will see you in the next session. There will be new sessions. Follow the website or the newsletter of TreasuryXL. We inform you there. And hopefully you got something you can use in the future.